Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Alex Rider, Season 1, Episode 1. It's just called Episode 1, which always throws me off because I expect to have a title afterwards. But this is Amazon Prime's new show. It's an Episode 1, so we will start spoiler-free. We'll give you warning before we go into spoilers. We'll give you a gist of it. It's a new 8-episode season, which has been up to date at the time of recording. And it is essentially about a teenager who's pretty handy when it comes to a bit of parkour, a bit of fighting, and a bit of tech, being a bit tech savvy. And basically, his uncle, who he lives with, turns out to be a spy who was murdered in the first episode, kind of setting up the idea that he himself is going to have to enter the spy world and get involved and find out what's going on. So that's the general gist of it. We'll keep that sort of there for spoiler-free section. And
are you familiar with this property before now?
I had no idea it was a property. It's a thing before this?
It was a series of books in the early 2000s. They did a film based on it that I think was called Stormbreaker. It's terrible. Terrible movie. Don't watch it. In fact, I've got something to point out about the context of how that movie has affected this show in a little bit. But I just want to say, because I read these books at the time, there was a whole trend of, spy novels kind of for young adult stuff. We had these, you had the young James Bond stuff, you had the Cherub books, all kind of going at the same time around this time period. It's very popular.
Okay, interesting. No, I'd never heard of this. Although that said, though, I think this did come up in the news once a long time ago, because I vaguely remember having this conversation then. But aside from that, no, I'd never heard of this and was not familiar with the property whatsoever. So this was not even something we planned to do necessarily. Connor just noticed it go on Prime today and said, hey, do you want to do this, and push one of the things we were going to do today till tomorrow? And I said, sure, why not? Let's do a pilot. And I guess I'll just ask the question. Did you pick this knowing full well that I would hate it? Like, was that the idea?
No. Well, I knew it was a spy thing, so I was like, you're probably not going to enjoy this. I didn't know. I hadn't even seen a trailer, though. I had literally... I saw it existed and went, huh, that's a thing. We should do that. I did think it was. I did think you would hate it. Once I started watching it, I was like, "Oh, Pete's gonna hate this."
Yeah, I can't stand it. I did. It's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but it's got a lot of elements that I do not like in general. I especially don't like it when you mix it with what feels like. There's something about a lot of British TV, because it's a British TV show, right?
It feels aggressively British.
Obviously there's a couple of American characters and whatever, but it feels like a British TV show that you might see on a British TV channel, and everything about that typically usually just makes me want to go to sleep. And there's very little about this that I find that I do not like the main character of Alex Rider. I think he's got a little snot face that looks like it's just begging for a bus. And
I don't disagree with that.
Not all the other teenage characters, for the most part, I didn't really like either. And honestly, there was so many moments in this where it felt like it was trying to do like these dramatic, cool beats, and it's not laughably bad by any means, but none of the moments landed for me. And on top of that, I'm just not super into a lot of the spy tropes that this is playing with specifically. So this was a rough watch for me.
I will say, as someone who likes a lot of British TV more than Pete does, who likes a lot of spy things a lot more than Pete does, I came into this with background knowledge of this character and franchise in general. I thought it was okay. I thought it was easy to watch. It's been a while since I've watched something that's so British. So I kind of had to readjust to that. But once I adjusted, I was like, yeah, this is all right. I think this would be a really easy thing to just stick on and burn through.
Yeah, I don't hate all British TV, for the record. I think there's a lot of good British comedy. I think whenever British TV tries to be cool, I have a hard time accepting it. It doesn't work for me. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. These teenagers in this.
It was the music choices that were really getting me as well. Like down to the opening titles, I'm like, oh yeah, this is very British.
Yeah. Not feeling it. It's just a bunch of. That's what's like a really mean complaint, but it's a bunch of like I'm hearing a lot of voices that sound like they should be on soaps and not on proper written material. Not to offend every soap writer out there, but that's kind of how it feels to me.
I can see where you come from. It feels very tropey in the way that a lot of soaps do. I think this is a problem of it's adapting material that's nearly 20 years old that already at the time was playing with spy tropes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, because the whole conceit, of course, is that he's going to become this super spy and be recruited at this young age, and like all the beats that were showing that he was good with certain things, that he was good at, he has this particular skill set, and even just that line was like, did you just take that from the Taken script? Like,
what I think is what kind of works about that line for me is the kids, they're at an age where they might have seen Taken on TV, a decade ago. I mean, like, this was the coolest movie ever for someone of that age. So it almost works as like an intentional reference, almost.
Oh no, his best friend's really into the X-Men movies.
That was cringy.
He sits there and talks to the girl at the party for about 10 minutes about why. Joe was funny to me is he was talking about the movie specifically, but then started talking about how the allegory for the X-Men and all that, and she was shockingly impressed with his analysis.
To be fair, she was extremely drunk and threw up on him 3 seconds later.
She was extremely drunk. That's true. Maybe it was making him appear smarter than he was. But the fact that he was given that sort of the allegorical side to it and sort of crediting the movies with that felt really weird. I don't know. I guess what I'm doing here is I'm critiquing some little assholes, analysis of a movie. I'm essentially saying, no, you're not as good at this as we are. Shut up. Stop it.
Do you know what I think the problem is?
Yes.
That almost makes it work for me in a weird way, is that I believe some shit-faced little, snot-nosed 16-year-old thinks this about the X-Men movies right now, and annoyingly, this feels realistic that this is being said like this, which makes it which objectively makes it decent writing if it's capturing the vibe of reality, but it makes me hate it because I hate that is reality.
This made me dislike the character. I don't know what it had to do with him. There's a whole opening scene where it's kind of like setting up kind of the villain side of things, and there's kind of an assassination. I wouldn't really say anything more than that yet, but there's that kind of element to it, and then it kind of introduces their characters, and it does this thing where we were seeing them in high school life as a normal teenager, because obviously that's going to completely change within a couple of episodes. He's going to be like not doing normal life stuff anymore, or if he is, it'll be a double life where he's pretending to be normal, and then he'll have spy work after class.
Yeah, it seems toned back to what it was in the books. Like there's no real gadgets here. Even obviously he's not using a lot of gadgets. He's only just being inducted to it. But we see some other spies at work, like his uncle, and there's very little in the way of gadgets. So it feels toned back. It's very telling to me that the original books, where they were very gadget heavy, were written pre-Craig Bond films. Before that kind of paring back started, and now it's like, well, we could take a note from that for this show. Yeah,
that's fair. I don't really have a whole lot more to say about it. I just like, it's not the worst thing ever. It's not like terrible. It's not like completely falling over its face in terms of ideas or anything like that. It's very generic and tropey in how it approaches everything. And everything it's doing, I've seen done better elsewhere. Not even necessarily in spy stuff, but just like the concept of, okay, the dying, guardian, and now, it's superhero 101, right? It's like, it's just what it is. And him not believing the cover story, not believing that he was really in a car accident, and sort of looking further into it. Like, some of that felt a little bit forced to me. It just, even though I get what they're doing and it makes sense for the sake of the plot, it didn't necessarily feel natural to me that his sole reason for not believing it was that, no, my uncle would never drive over the speed limit. That's just not who he was. Like,
I was like, well, maybe not when you're in the car, mate.
Maybe I don't know. It felt like too much of a little thing for him to really make that his obsessive point, to be like, no, I have to look into this. I have to hack into systems. I have to tail things and find out what really happened, and all the rest of it. And the shadowy person in the agency who's like, maybe we should recruit this young kid because he's good at this, or like all that stuff. Just felt like I was hearing cliches. I was hearing things that I've heard before.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I hope that will ease off as it gets into the plot more, in the sense.
I'm not finding out.
No, I'm not. I'm probably not either. But what I mean, in general, I would hope that for a very specific reason, in that this is actually adapting the second book of the series. Point Blank is the name of the second book, and it's very clear that's what it's adapting from. This first episode, and they're just having to work in some of the origin stuff from the first one in early on. So I'm hoping once it gets past some of that early origin stuff and gets into the plot, it might kind of get away from some of those cringier cliche lines a little bit more. Perhaps once it becomes a bit more of its own thing. Also,
I mean, first of all, I hate usually when the name of something's just the character's name. Unless they have a really interesting name, it doesn't work. And Alex Rider, well, it does sound like a really sort of movie name, right? It doesn't sound like a real person's name. It sounds like a superhero alias,
but
or more specifically,
a really generic movie name.
It's really generic movie name, but I'd be okay with that. But I feel like Alex Rider, I feel like I'm expecting someone who's always doing crazy stuff on a motorbike. I feel like that's who Alex Rider is, not this little douchebag. So I feel like
he has a bicycle.
If this was a cheesy B movie where someone was doing silly stuff with a motorbike, I would happily accept that he's called Alex Rider. I wouldn't want the movie to be called that though. The movie should be called, I don't know, Apex Rider or something. I don't know. That's what you call the movie. But
sure.
I don't feel like his name here suits what he is, which is boring spy person.
No, that's fair. I suspect they're very glad they skipped to doing the second book. I think the main reason they chose to avoid the first one is because it had a terrible film adaptation, and anyone who does remember that might, well, it will sour some of those memories, and they just don't want to be associated with it. I think that's a reasonably smart choice.
Yeah.
Turns out it's a very good choice for when they happen to be releasing it right now, because that first book is about a virus being spread through schools.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, that would have been an awkward thing to release right now.
Oh, I don't know. That might have even done more.
It would have been fascinating because of it. Yeah.
That might have actually made it forgive the phrase, but go viral itself because of its subject matter.
That's possible. Yeah.
I will give the spoiler warning there because I mean I don't have a whole lot to say about this. There's a couple of plot beats that I think are worth mentioning. One is that the uncle is straight up like double crossed by someone inside the agency and murdered, and that is kind of the insane. There's a little bit of setup with him. We get to see him with Alex a few scenes, giving him out of trouble for breaking out of the school to steal a phone back, and kind of their banter at dinner to make him a little bit likable. It's done well enough. It's just it's not the worst example of trying to make him a character before he gets killed off.
It's hard to make the Guardian character feel compelling in a lot of movies or TV shows, especially when you're going to kill them off within the first episode. It's always challenging. It's
always challenging. I was interested in Jack, who's kind of the living, I don't know, like helper assistant person.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I mean she's been there for like 8 years because they mentioned that
it was 6 years while she was doing.
6 years, whatever.
Doing whatever degree she was doing, but 6 years. I can't think of anything beyond maybe a medical thing that is 6 years.
Well, it depends. She might have done like.
I mean, if she'd done even a regular degree at 3 years and then a master's is another 2. I mean, I don't know.
Well, no, this is obviously not the exact same as what I'm used to, but whatever, because those numbers didn't add up to me. But but no, there's definitely courses where you do your 4-year course and then you do like an extended like postgrad thing for 2 years. I mean, that's not a weird idea. Like that's totally possible.
Why
are we even debating this? This wasn't the point I was trying to make.
I just said they tend to be in the medical realms.
Whatever. This is irrelevant. That's not a point. Who cares what she's doing? It doesn't matter.
It might matter.
The point is that she was there doing this part-time while she was at university, so this was a part-time gig, was helping around the house with raising the kid and doing whatever.
And she was ready to be done and was just about to talk to the uncle about that until he got dragged off on the spy mission.
Yeah, although she did say she didn't really want to leave. I think the conversation was probably going to be something like, well, I don't really want to leave because I like being here and I like helping and stuff, but I also have to start making a full-time wage and like starting off my career.
It was basically, can I stay and live here and just hang around, but you just not pay me anymore?
Yeah, I'll be more of a roommate or a tenant than anything else.
Yeah.
But she kind of becomes the guardian, and because the big plot beat that really happens is that they catch Alex looking into things and finding things out and figuring things out, and essentially the dude from the agency offers him a job, and Alex says piss off, or it doesn't even really go that far. He just kind of doesn't say yes or no, and basically is a play to like make him accept. They try and because Jack, who lives with them, is American, and they threaten, they have someone from like deportation come around to send her back, and then child services come around to like relocate him to an orphanage because he's technically underage and doesn't have a guardian.
I think it hits a little bit harder as well because she's black, and it's this immigration agency coming around to kick her out. So it's got this extra prejudice behind it, even though it's very clear immediately what's happening.
Yeah.
But it just has this optics of it.
And there was this moment afterwards where he goes to the phone, and I almost laughed out loud here, where he's like, I don't even have to dial a number, do I? You're already listening. And it's like, I get the point, but...
And I think what bothered me about this is that, okay, fine, the room's bugged, right? Stop holding the phone up to your ear. They're listening anyway. Stop holding it like you're actually on the phone.
Well, it could be the phone that's bugged, right?
I mean, it could be, but if they're listening to everything in the room in general, then
true,
it would have been fine.
I mean, the funny thing is there's a directorial touch here that I actually kind of liked. It felt out of place in the context of this story and what it was doing. Is everyone behind them? There's like three people, because the people who come to deport Jack, there's like two or three of them, and then there's two or three people. And I think the social services woman comes with like a police officer. So there's like five strangers in the house with Jack, and they're in the background and they're out of focus. And they all stop and just are watching as he's like making this little speech, and it felt like I actually like the shot, and I like the sort of mood that this creates on its own in a vacuum. But I don't actually think it fits with what the actual context of this show is doing and what this scene is, because this almost makes it imply that all of these characters that are here to do this understand why they're there, and I don't think they do. They're just there doing their job because they've been told from higher ups to go and do this and that.
I think they do know, because as soon as he gets to the phone, their phones ring, and they're like, understood, and walk out the door without not even a second glance, not an apology, no question. I think they know exactly what they're doing. I think they're on the payroll, so to speak.
Even if it is, though, I don't think it... I guess what I'll say is that it felt like it was way more thoughtful of a cinematic moment that felt out of touch with the rest of it, that felt like a British TV show.
That's fair. I don't think I can argue with that.
And I think the point I'm making there, because I can already hear someone saying, like, yeah, so you're complaining that it's trying to do more, isn't that what you wanted to do? And I'm like, well, yeah, in theory. The problem is that the style has not been established at any point in this episode for this kind of like emotionally dramatic beat. And I do think the actual moment's ruined by the actor and the dialogue. I don't think that part of it's good. I think it's just the visual shot of them and out of focus, sort of watching from the background, actually, and being completely still, which makes it feel kind of surreal and like weird, like creepy, like they are kind of like not just the people they say they are. There's more to it than that.
Yeah.
So
I actually I do really like a part of the writing here, though. One of the beats, when as it's finishing up with this speech, he kind of says, I was gonna come and phone you anyway, because they told him to phone the next morning if he changed his mind. And he's like, I was gonna come and phone you anyway, but you've just shown me what kind of people you are, and now I don't really I don't like you. I don't want to work for you anymore. I don't trust you. It's just kind of shown this ruthlessness.
No, I'll agree. I don't mind that beat, that sentiment that is raised there. I think that's actually quite a good idea.
I think it's interesting, and I won't want to say entirely unique, but not necessarily the trope, is to have this spy brought in but not trust his agency, to kind of feel on his own entirely from the start is a little bit interesting.
Yeah, but unfortunately, nothing about the character makes me want to watch any more of his adventures, and nothing about the rest of the episode I thought was particularly engaging. I was just kind of in almost like a daze the whole time, just kind of letting it happen. Like I was never really invested in what it was doing. It was just kind of like, I'm watching this thing, it's going through its motions, and when it gets to the credits, I get to stop, and I'm excited about that.
I kind of don't disagree that much. I liked it more than you did. I'm not going to defend it too hard because it's not great, but I think it's really easy watching if you're into this sort of tropey stuff. If you're into the teenage spy stuff, you'll probably find it enjoyable enough. I do promise you, I didn't tell you to watch this with the intention of you hating it. I knew it was spies and stuff, but I didn't think it was going to be as British. I didn't think it was. I thought maybe I'll have some style to it. I didn't know. I hadn't seen a trailer. I hadn't even seen a screenshot. I just knew it existed because Amazon told me it existed.
Yeah.
Amazon also told me to watch 47 Ronin earlier, though. So what the hell does Amazon know?
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. So, no, this was too network British TV for me, by a large, and then on top of that, the spy stuff, which I really just don't like in general that much either.
What is interesting is for a lot of our American audience who maybe haven't experienced a lot of British TV, this might feel very fresh because of that.
It might feel exotic.
Yeah, it might feel like something to us. We grew up watching a lot of British TV. It feels like, okay, we've seen this 1,000 times before, but to someone who hasn't, this might weirdly feel kind of fresh and different because of that. And if that's the case, if you're an American watching this who hasn't seen a lot of British TV, it might be worth checking out just out of the curiosity of seeing that.
Yeah. There's a stylistic thing about it that, at least for most British TV, that just doesn't work for me. Like, everything feels so... Like, I don't want to say laid back, but there's definitely more of a restrained approach to everything, which for me makes a lot of the concepts, even though on paper they should be more exciting, feel more dull. It's one of the problems I have with Doctor Who, even though Doctor Who, for a large part of what it's doing, is doing science fiction ideas that I'm into. Although I do think that Doctor Who does go too far with a lot of wackiness sometimes, but sometimes it feels a little bit, I don't know, just a little bit constrained by... Like, I get the feeling with British... And having actually spoken and worked with people who work in the British TV industry, there's kind of this attitude of, this is how we do things because it's the superior way, and I'm like, I don't think it is. This feels like pompous, like
you have just
pride.
described the British history of 1,000 years.
Yeah,
in a sentence.
But that'll do us. That'll do us for this discussion. Clearly, we're not continuing with Alex Rider because I have no desire, humanly in any way, shape, or form, to watch anymore. So let us know what you think of the episode, though, or the whole show, indeed, if you happen to watch it, in the comments. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the show and the channel and everything we do here, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv, and you can do that for as little as $1 per month. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?